How do you start a business the right way? Should you even start a business? Especially if you already have a comfortable 9 to 5. What is going on, Summit Chasers? I am beyond honored and excited for our next guest on the Summit Startup Success Series. We have the man responsible for my childhood and millions of others as well, Mr. Tom Dusenbery, former CEO of Hasbro Interactive, Atari, and Games.com. He is the master of fun itself. He led the way for games like Monopoly. Who hasn't played Monopoly? You learn more about business playing that than in almost any school. Risk, Clue, Trivial Pursuit, and many, many more. He also helped bring us brands like Nerf. I was thinking before recording this, I wonder how many kids have been grounded, yelled at, in trouble because of this man. His mission is all things fun, but his wealth of knowledge stems far past just video games and Nerf wars. He brings us incredible knowledge, backed by experience and big-time success, leading him to start his own venture in Dusenbery Entertainment. So please, get your notebooks out for this one. Hydrate beforehand. No snacks. Just sit back, soak in the knowledge that this man brings, and enjoy the show. All right, I am here with Tom Dusenbery, former CEO of Hasbro Entertainment. I am so excited to have him here, the man responsible for my childhood. Tom, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Zach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is, for those of you that are listening, listen carefully. The experience and the knowledge that this man can bring to your life, your business, is going to be almost immeasurable. I'm going to start it off with a question to get the brain juices flowing, to kind of take you back a little bit. But for Dusenbery Entertainment, what was a pivotal moment that brought that idea to life to start your own venture?
You know, I was a corporate guy. You know, I had been in a business that was owned by another company and was a big part of a big company for many, many years. And I always wanted to do things that, you know, that I controlled. So that was really critical for me. And for some reason, I was lucky enough in my career to start at a company where I started on the loading dock, and 22 years later, I was the CEO of that company. So, I mean, it was just an amazing ride from a point of view that, you know, what my career was, but equally important was the games business was just growing dramatically during that period of time as well. And so I had been the CEO of Hasbro Interactive for 6 years, and Hasbro, my corporate company, was looking at trying to make some changes, and what they were saying was go back to basics, where they wanted to be basically a toy company. And so they asked me to help them sell my company. And so I successfully sold it, and it gave me an exit and an opportunity to do what I kind of dreamed of doing. So what I did was I created Dusenbery Entertainment as a outcome of that, and for an opportunity for me to be entrepreneurial from that point forward. And so from that, you know, once I sold the business, the corporate business, from that period until now, Zach, I've been in entrepreneurial type situations where I have started my own businesses and worked with others to start businesses to be able to make them happen. And in the process, you know, I've raised over $80 million worth of venture capital, and it's converted itself into like $1.3 billion worth of value. So it's been a very successful ride from a point of view of being able to convert from a corporate type of a position into an entrepreneurial type of a position and ride the trends as the game industry continues to grow and expand.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And what advice would you give somebody who has the comfort of a corporate position with health insurance, you know, 401k, whatever it is, to the entrepreneurial journey? What advice would you give them when they want to make that shift?
Yeah, I think that you have to do a lot of soul searching, because being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. And you need to kind of consider, you know, who you are and what your responsibility is within life. So, you know, if you happen to be a parent and you've got 2 or 3 kids, and, you know, you've got responsibility for them, even though you may covet being an entrepreneur, the downside to impacting your family is something that you probably have to factor into the decision. And so I would make sure that you try to consider it from that perspective. With that said, if you really want to pursue something which is, you know, starting from the beginning and creating a company, it's the most fascinating journey that you'll probably ever go through. And my advice would be is that make sure that you really have done your homework up front from a point of view of kind of self-analysis of what really is good and what's not so good about your product or your business that you're trying to enter. And then also try to look at yourself from a point of view of what you're good at and where you might need to get help. and make sure that you get good, sound people that can help you in the areas that you're not really strong.
No, that's great advice, really. And I think a lot of people, when they make that transition or they want to make that transition, I think also some entrepreneurship it's romanticized, and they don't understand. It's like you said, it's a journey, and it's a tough one. It's not. It's more like Lord of the Rings type of journey where it's very difficult. You might lose some friends along the way, right? But also having another point that you made that's amazing is being really, really clear on what you're good at, what you can be the best in the world at, what you're most passionate about, and then how do you turn those things, those intersecting points, into profit, and being really honest with yourself. I don't think a lot of people are really honest with themselves. I think they want to be. They romanticize that, hey, I could possibly do this, but is this something I'm truly passionate about, or do I just think it's cool, or do I just think that it's going to give me status?
Yeah, and on the one hand, you need to stay focused on what you're trying to make happen and make sure that you don't get too far off base. But on the other hand, you also need to be flexible enough to know that maybe other things can impact and make your product better. So, as an example, when I first started out on my journey for being an entrepreneur, I started a game company, and it was a mobile game company. And so I got together the proper resources to help me make this happen. And what we did is we decided that we would pursue at the time a platform called J2ME, which was like a Java Lite type of a platform. Well, once we got into the marketplace, we realized that only half of the carriers were using that platform, and there was another platform called Brew, and that was a big platform as well. So what we did was we said, what we need to do is we need to cover the entire market because the leverage is so much more effective for us. And we went out and we found a partner that had Brew games and we had J2ME games, and we did a roll up to bring it together, and that made our company so much more strong as we went then further into the journey.
So being flexible is important. So that's a good segue into this next question. So what advice would you give them to stay flexible so that they can make those pivots quickly and efficiently?
Well, I think that, you need to, on the one hand, you need to, have a clear vision as it relates to what you want to bring to the marketplace. But on the other hand, you have to be the best listener you've ever been in your life. And you need to understand and you need to be able to absorb conversation and absorb opinion about your product and not necessarily maybe implement it directly on how that input was given to you, but what it does is it directionally says to you, maybe I should be looking in a different direction, or maybe I have a bigger market if I start to look at it from a different type of perspective. So, I just think that, that it's really important for you to be able to absorb feedback from other people, whether it's good or bad, on your product.
Mm. How would you? What's some maybe from your own experience, or and obviously you work with startups and other businesses as well. Some like tangible tactics to experiment. Like you have your MVP. How do I experiment without going all in or without breaking the bank or whatever it is, and able to make like you said, listen to the market, listen to the feedback, and then be able to make those pivots. What are some tactics or tangible? How do you do those experiments?
So, like for me, which is in the game industry, a lot of times it's a kernel of an idea that needs to be exploited, but then you can exploit it on multiple different missions and multiple different directions. And that's ultimately what the product will be. But the whole point is that is the germ of an idea the right way to go? And so maybe what you need to do is narrow down the focus initially to say, can I deliver even a 5-minute experience? But after 5 minutes, does the person say, wow, that was fun and I'd like to do it again? Or wow, that was a lot of work, but I got through it. And that right there is an indication that you probably need some more work to do to fine tune it from a point of view of making it flow better. So for me, a lot of times it comes down to bite-sized types of situations to really understand and interpret, am I doing the right thing here? And if I am, then I can exploit it and I can make it bigger and more impactful from a market perspective.
So you had mentioned that you had raised about 80 million in venture capital funding. So for those that want to go that route, that want to go the VC route, what initial advice would you give them to even start to have those conversations?
Well, it's a very, very complicated part of the business world, and because you're bringing in partners that really have different opinions and probably different objectives than you do, so you need to be very careful as it relates to how you bring partners in. I find that the first-time startups and first-time entrepreneurs make the biggest mistake by giving away too much too early. So, they bring a buddy in and a buddy says, hey, I can help you and I can do this for you. And the guy says, okay, I'll give you 20% for that. Well, now you're getting down to cap table type stuff. And all of a sudden you've got this huge burden of somebody that didn't do anything for your company, but they've got a big part of it. So what I would do is I would make sure that if you're going to go out and you're going to start the capital fundraising type of effort, make sure that you have some good advisor from a perspective of trying to understand where you fit into that whole thing. Otherwise, everybody else is going to take everything from you, and at the end, you're going to be saying, "Man, I'm just working in a job again," and that's probably not the outcome that you're looking for. What I've learned is that the further along you can get in anything that you try to do from an entrepreneurial perspective, the more you can hold on to. And so, if you like from a prototyping point of view, instead of giving away equity for something that's a prototype, try to get a loan or try to get, an advance against a loan or something like that so that you're not giving up equity ultimately down the road for a work for hire type of a situation. And I think, those types of little techniques that you have is that you're still having partnership, you're still working with who you want to work with, but you're not giving up what you're doing. And that's, your heart and your soul, which is the equity of your business, to somebody that's really all they're doing is work for hire type stuff for you.
So your client list is extremely impressive. Like, I mean, not just with Hasbro, but I mean Disney, Sony, Apple, Xbox, and that's not even a third of them, I don't think. Like I said before this, apparently you were a huge part of my childhood. But what advice would you you give for the up and coming founders for approaching clients that they may perceive as way out of their league, but they may be a great fit for and may be able to solve some of their problems, similar to some of the ones that I just named?
So most companies want innovation. And so there's a part of their company that's actually looking for people like us that would help them have an impact on the business. With that said, those companies have such few resources versus what the vast amount of opportunity is. It always becomes challenging for you to break through the clutter to be able to get to the right decision maker. So for me, I have an advantage because, I do have this career background, and those companies that I worked with, I have had relationships with for years. So, I know who the right person is. And if I don't know who the right person is, I know who the right person is to talk to for them to give me advice to get to the right person, which is helpful. From an entrepreneur that doesn't have any of that, it's really a huge problem. What I normally do is that I try to, reach into those companies. And if I can't get in, what I do then is I find somebody who has access to the company that can help me along. And so hire an agent or someone like that that can come in and they can navigate you through the negotiation. They can navigate you through how you get to the right decision maker. And then, the most important thing is you've got to get them to open up their purse string and give you money to be able to start making things happen. And if you have somebody that's been in there that's done deals before, they generally know the legal department and they know how to make, to get you the first check to get things going. So that is something that does work. I actually do that myself for the right projects, but it's something that you have to pay attention to as it relates to what you go into it. If you decide to go after a company, you have to have a proposition that's compelling from their point of view, and you have to show that it's an easy path for them to be able to take your idea and to integrate it into their business, either through an acquisition or through a product purchase or some research and development. But it's what I have found is that the entrepreneur needs to do all the work from the partner's point of view. So you have to do the marketing plan, you have to do the sales plan, you have to figure out what the distribution is, and all that. And the more you provide to them, the more it's likely for them to say, okay, geez, I'll move this forward and see if I can't get a deal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times they try to aim, like you said, find that champion, at each kind of ladder. Then you can work, okay, who's the decision maker here? And sometimes you might need to do that a few different times, or maybe many different times before you can get to the proper decision maker. I think some of it
Yeah,
try to
and
shoot
it's
too high.
most companies, most entrepreneurs say, by God, I want to go to Tim Cook because he's the decision maker and he's going to make this happen. Well, Tim Cook is not your decision maker. As great as he is, he's got an entire organization of 200,000 people that make decisions for him. He may guide you to somebody to be able to make that decision, but the most important thing from my perspective when I look at a corporation is really who the director is. And the reason for that is the director in a big corporation is the difference between strategy and execution. So they're the ones that have to do all the work, right? So if you can get into a company and you can find the director of business development or you can find the director of marketing for a specific area, that's a gold mine because they're the true decision makers as it relates to they have to apply your product. They have to make money off of your product. They have to work with you. And so to me, to get out of your head that you need to talk to the CEO at a cocktail party down the road, you can shake their hand and you can talk about how great things are and stuff like that. But to get stuff done, get into the company and get the right people that are decision makers that'll help you, make something happen.
Mm-hmm. So one of the big things that we do with our clients and we focus on is, we focus on the 4 Ps, and the first two is, purpose. So what's the purpose of your business? And principles, right? Core values, principles, business principles. How do you operate? How do you live your life outside and in business? And then use the values to kind of keep you in line, to keep you consistent. And I saw that you had some core values established for Dusenbery Entertainment. They were strategic, challenge and lead, growth, and then change and innovation. How important and what is really the benefit for startups and small businesses to establish a set of these core values early on rather than waiting until they have a big team?
Yeah, I think it's critical. And I think it's critical because it kind of sets the tone for everything that you are and what you aren't. And so for me, core values is something that I always look at and I try to represent as closely as I possibly can. And, when it comes down to it, when you're talking with other people, you're representing yourself. And a lot of times, representing yourself means is you have to have those core values that they say, okay, I want to work with this person or I want to rub shoulders with this person because they are like me and they have the values that I have. So to being able to articulate your core values and then living up to your core values, I believe is a differentiator that makes a successful entrepreneur.
Mm. And so what advice would you give them, or what would you challenge when they make this point of, I don't need my business principles or business core values to mimic my real life core values?
I think that your business core values and your life core values kind of go hand in hand. Now, they may be a little bit different because you're more community focused on your personal life and stuff like that. But I do think that fundamentally, you need to live up to something, right? And so live up to yourself. And that is to establish core values for you, for your company, and who you want to associate with. And if you do that and you live up to those core values, life will be good for you and you probably won't get yourself in a lot of trouble. And people will know specifically who you are and what you represent because of the core values that you carry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It allows for consistency. It's tough to wear two masks, right? If I'm going to be this person and live by these values outside of work, and then I have to go put on another mask and do that when I'm in my office, and it's really hard to keep that, especially if you want to grow and have a long lasting business. It's very, very difficult to keep those separate for such a long period of time.
Yeah, and you find like for me, I'm a game guy, right? So I've been in the game industry pretty much all my career, and so for me, I must have done something right because I've been able to stay in the same industry all that time. And so a lot of it, goes back to the fact that I respected people and I had core values as it relates to what I felt, and I would be in a meeting and somebody would be saying something that just wasn't consistent with what my core values were. I would speak up and I would say, respectfully say, this is what I feel. And so, it kind of carried me from a point of view of my entire career. And so, because of that, and because of a lot of my core values, I get an opportunity to meet with Zach Carlin, and talk to other people about some of the things that I've done. And so, I do feel that it is very important for you to carry your life and your business career as it relates to core values that represent who you are in life.
First of all, I'm going to take that clip out. I'm going to save that. What's the mission? Because obviously you're very passionate about having values, right, and having purpose. So what is the mission of Dusenbery Entertainment?
Yeah, the business has evolved, and it used to be all about building new companies and being able to to capitalize them as much as I possibly could. And today, it's much more for me is that I do a lot of focus on business development and I do a lot of focus on innovation. So for me, what my mission is right now is to either create or work with great creators that can then develop meaningful product in the marketplace that I can bring to the marketplace by way of my business development capabilities. So, I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I'm trying to do that from a point of view that as a corporate guy and as a marketing guy and as a development guy, you have certain capabilities. But what I'm trying to do now is to find the essence of storytelling, find the essence of what true creation is, and trying to interpret that in ways that will be new products for hopefully the next generation of people that want to play games.
Tom, with all the things that you've accomplished, right, that's an amazing example of always keep your cup half empty or half full if you want to have a positive spin on it. Because even now, after all you've done, you're understanding and you've recognized that you need to develop new skills. You need to learn. You need to continue to grow. You need to continue to push yourself. So that in itself is an incredible lesson and testament to those that think they made it, to those that think that I know what I need to know. Right? I've done this. I've done that. I have the experience. All right. So I want to thank you for that lesson, both and then reiterating it even for me. Right. So I really want to thank you for that. There's a question that I ask everybody at the end of these interviews. And you kind of already answered it, but I'm going to ask you again in a different sort of way. But for you, Tom, and at Dusenbery Entertainment, what is the next summit that you are chasing?
For me, my entire career is based upon it's all about the fun. And so I am all about immersive consumer experiences, and really feel that if we do a good job at the very front end, which is the consumer experience, then everything else can then take care of themselves, and you can have ultimately a successful product. So for me, I believe that the next summit will be virtual reality. And what I see what Apple is doing with the Apple Vision Pro, and I see with the capabilities of what Quest is doing, I do believe that will be the next summit and for games. And I think that hopefully that I will be on the forefront of that, and being able to create and deliver exciting new stories and experiences for the fans to play games for generations to come.
Well, I can't wait to watch you do just that, my friend. So where can people find you? What can they expect when they work with you, and who do you typically prefer to work with? Who's your perfect client?
Sure. So to get a hold of me, my email address is tom@tomdusenbery.com, and my website is dusenberyentertainment.com. And what I do is I like to work. I pretty much stay in my lane, so I'm pretty much focused on games, and because that's where my expertise is. And when I stay there, good things happen. So it's pretty much game focused. But what I love to do is I love to work with innovators that are at the stage that they really need big support. And so what I try to do is if I try to size up the situation and say, what are you really good at? And let's really emphasize the heck out of that. And then what can I do to help facilitate or fill in for you so that we can make sure that we have everything taken care of from a point of view of making the business happen. So that's the entrepreneurial side. But on the other hand, I do a lot of business development and licensing. And if you're to the point that we can go out and make a deal happen, I'd like to try to do those types of things as well. I'm not into quantity. I'm more into quality. So, if I do work with somebody, it's probably highly likely we're going to try to find a home someplace that, will generate some type of revenues for us. That's kind of how I look at it.
Beautiful. Tom, I am honored that you even answered my message on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you.
Came on our show. I really, really appreciate you. And I have one of the oddest compliments that I give people when I'm inspired by them, but I'm so glad that you exist. I'm so glad that we were able to have a conversation. And I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors, Tom.
Well, thank you so much, Zach. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it. So I've been in the game industry pretty much all my career. And so for me, I must have done something right because I've been able to stay in the same industry all that time. And so a lot of it, goes back to the fact that, I respected people and I had core values.